Walking the baby in the stroller the other day, my 2-year-old decided to toss out his milk bottle. I stopped the stroller on the sidewalk. I bent over and I picked up that baby bottle. And that's when a woman in a flashy car decided she was going to turn into the commercial driveway that I was now blocking. There was no traffic, there was no hurry, but for some reason, this woman decided that she needed to get in that driveway right away, and she started honking at us. Well, I picked up the bottle and got out of the way as quick as I could. And after she whizzed by us, I just wondered, what's she so angry about? Well, then the other day, my friend was walking his dog on his street. It was his mom's dog because she had just been taken to the hospital. She was in the emergency room. My friend was texting her on his phone as he was walking the dog. And that's when an angry driver slowed down and shouted at my friend, "Stop looking at your phone and pay attention to your dog." Well, my friend immediately looked up and his dog was just fine. He was walking on the grass and nowhere near the road. And he wondered, why was this person so angry? Or take the Harvard psychologist who actually counsels people on anger, and he's come across the same thing recently. Quote, "Personally, I was on a run the other day. Somebody yelled at me for wearing a mask in Boston. So I looked into it and they were actually right. I'm running around a reservoir and I'm away from everybody. So the next day comes and I think, well, maybe I won't wear a mask today on my run." And then I approach this lady. I'm 20 feet away. I smile at her. She angrily yells at me, "Don't smile at me. You're not wearing a mask. You're taking a chance with my life." So you can't win. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one with stories like this. Have you noticed there are a lot of angry people out there? It's probably because there's a lot of fear out there, which is turning into anger all around us. We're scared of the fires. We're scared about our economy. We're scared of the futures of it, the institutions we're a part of. We're scared of politics. We're scared about social justice reform. And our fear fuels a lot of this behavior that we, frankly, are not proud of. Mental therapists say they have more patients than they can deal with at this time. Marriage counselors say their business is booming. And dentists, they say more people are experiencing dental problems because they're grinding their teeth at night. How do we deal with all this anxiety? How do we put up with all these crazy people? Well, we get some advice from our gospel this morning. After all, Jesus lived a pretty stressful life. And he also put up with some pretty crazy people. And this morning, we see that no more clearly as Jesus deals with his disciples. James and John, you saw their pictures on their bulletins. You wondered how I got those, went all the way back 2,000 years. And they decide that they want to sit at the right hand and the left hand of Jesus. Jesus takes their comments at face value, treats it as an honest question, tells them what he thinks. And then the other disciples hear about this, and they get angry either because they didn't think of it sooner, or because James and John are just so clueless about the servant nature of what it means to be a disciple. Again, Jesus takes it with a grain of salt. He doesn't exhibit anger or frustration. What we see Jesus doing in this instance and in many instances with his disciples is exhibiting patience. Jesus tells James and John about a cup they'll need to drink, about a baptism they'll need to undergo. James and John assure Jesus they know exactly what he's talking about. But Jesus knows better. And instead of correcting them, instead of yelling at them and pointing out their deficiencies, notice what Jesus does time and time again with these disciples and with disciples of all times. Jesus has patience with them. He's calm, he's tolerant, he's restrained. And this is how he trained up 12 disciples who would change the world. And underlining for you and me this morning how important patience is for us in our Christian walks. Patience is defined as an ability to endure difficult circumstances. Patience may involve perseverance in the face of delays, tolerance of provocation without responding in disrespect or anger. Patience is forbearance when we're under strain, especially when faced with longer-term difficulties, maybe like a pandemic. Patience is at the heart of getting through so much of the stuff that brought you and me to church this morning, that you and I carried to church this morning. Writer Amelia Barr says this: everything good needs time. Don't do work in a hurry. Patience pays in every way. In his letter to the Galatians, St. Paul includes in his list of the 9 fruits of the Spirit alongside mainstays like love, joy, peace, patience. And it could be argued that we need patience today more than ever because we're shortchanging ourselves when we're impatient. Take the breakfast buffet, which is never what people in the pews are thinking about on Sunday mornings during the sermon. But a recent study of behavior at breakfast buffets showed that the first item in the buffet is taken by 75% of those people in line. What's interesting, it's the same number even when the order of the items is reversed. What's more, 2/3 of the food taken comes from the first 3 items, regardless of how long the buffet line is. This means that optimizing marketers usually put the things they want to sell first, and that smart consumers benefit from adopting patience as they consider what's on offer in that breakfast buffet. Patience gets diners better breakfasts. It also gets kings and queens a longer reign. Take the family of King Edward I and Queen Eleanor of England back in the 13th century. Edward and the Queen enjoyed the best conditions available in medieval times. They lived in palaces, ate as much food as they liked. They had plenty of warm clothing, well-stocked fireplaces, the cleanest water available, an army of servants, and the best doctors around. Eleanor and Edward began to undertake the #1 task of any royal family, and that is continuing the family's reign by producing a male heir. Job number 1. Eleanor and Edward began this task when the Queen was 14 years old. She bore 16 children over the next 29 years. Here's what happened. The first was a daughter who died at birth. The second was another daughter who died at 3. A third daughter died at 6 months. Then finally, a boy was born. He died at 5. Then another boy. He died at 6. Then they had a girl. She lived at 29. Then they had another who died at 5 months. Then another who lived to 35. Followed by yet another boy who lived to 10. And it's kind of just as well because his name was Alfonso. And I don't know how King Alfonso would have sounded in England. Then another daughter who lived until 58. Then another daughter who lived to 2. Then an anonymous daughter who died just after birth. Then another daughter who lived to 53. An anonymous son who died shortly after birth. A daughter who lived to 34. And then finally, for keeping count, we're on 16. A son named Edward, who was the first boy to survive childhood, and at his father's death ascended to the throne as King Edward II. In other words, it took 16 tries over nearly 3 decades for the couple to fulfill the most fundamental mission of a royal couple. Talk about patience. Now, I realize that a sermon that says, well, just be patient, like Jesus, is not very helpful to us. Because if we could be more patient, we would. What we need to see is to see how deepening our faith in Jesus helps us be more patient. Jesus showed unending patience with the people around him. Today's reading is just one occasion. And what we find is that the more you and I cultivate the virtues and the habits that Jesus commends, the more patient we can become with that very impatient world of ours. I don't know about you, when I set those annual goals, be it January or even the beginning of Advent, one of the things I want to do is be more patient. And being more patient is something the scriptures not only teach us, but today even social scientists talk about how to improve patience. Take David DeSteno. He's a social scientist that's conducted numerous studies on how to increase our patience. And he's found scientifically that the practices of gratitude, of self-worth, and of compassion can greatly improve patience. For example, Dr. DeSteno, he ran this experiment on delayed gratification, asking people if they'd like to get paid a small amount of money right now, or wait a while and get a much larger amount. Those who were feeling neutral or happy when they entered into this exercise, they were pretty impatient. And they were willing to forego receiving $100 in a year by receiving $18 a day. However, those who are feeling thankful, those who are feeling gratitude, fared much differently. They were more secure in themselves and more secure in the future. and showed nearly twice the level of patience. They required at least $30 to forego that later reward. His research found that when people feel grateful, they'll spend more time helping somebody in trouble. They'll maintain financial decisions that benefit partners equally instead of one-sidedly. And they'll show loyalty to those who have helped them, even if it costs them something. When we operate, friends, from a place of gratitude, of being thankful for all that we have, we become more patient. It makes me wonder how I'm practicing gratitude. Did I wake up in the morning saying, holy cow, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. I need to do this, I need to do that. Or do we stop for a moment and say, gosh, thank you, Lord, for what I have. And you can go down your gratitude list, whether it's your health, the stuff in your fridge, the stuff in your garage. What are the ways we regularly remind ourselves of how blessed we are? It's a way to become more patient. The same results came when DeSena ran studies that enhanced self-worth, making people feel proud, not arrogant, but proud of the skills they have, good about themselves. It makes them more willing to wait for future rewards when you feel good about yourself. It makes us more patient. Thinking better of myself, being proud of who I am and what I've done. What are the ways I regularly do this? It's hard with social media, isn't it? Everybody just posts all these pictures. I remember once posting a picture. I've told you the story before. I posted a picture. I came to church the next day and somebody said, I saw that picture you posted. You didn't look very good. And he was a good friend. They could say that to me, which is anybody here. And I was like, well, actually, that's what I look like. And so how can we look at ourselves more gently, be nicer to ourselves, stop putting that 25 cents in the kick me machine, right? Thinking better of ourselves, being proud of who we are and what we've done. We grow in patience when we're kinder to ourselves. And then there's compassion, the third. Dr. DeSeno found that when we make people feel compassion for others, they'll take on the burdens of others, spending more time and effort to get others out of jams, to ease their distress, and as a result, to become more patient when we feel compassion for other people. How am I practicing compassion? This is one of the things Jesus did so well. He looked upon people who were suffering, people who were sick, people who were hungry, who were naked, who were homeless, and he had compassion. What occasions do I take, and can I take in the week ahead, to notice the burdens of others and to help take them on? It will make you more patient. For us Christians, these three virtues lie at the heart of the faith that we're striving to practice. Gratitude baked into everything we do as we thank God for the world God created, redeemed, and has a plan for. Take a look at the words of those hymns that we sing. They're full of words of gratitude. Secondly, compassion is one of Christ's fundamental attributes, passed on to us as we are compassionate to others because God has been compassionate to us. And self-worth. Self-worth comes from a God who thinks you and I are so valuable that God will partner with us in the work of redeeming the world, that God will send God's self, God's Son, to the earth, not to condemn the world, but to help the world along. This is what God thinks of you. This is who God thinks you are. I think it was Forbes. Father Steve, you're a business guy. I think he said that we just humans, we tend to think more of other people and less of ourselves. That's our default setting. But Jesus thinks of us probably much better than we think of ourselves. It is in these Christian practices that we become more patient. We can become more patient as we grow in gratitude, in compassion, and in self-worth. A father and daughter, they're playing in the park when a little girl spots an apple vendor. And she asks her father, hey, let's go buy us an apple. And so dad buys 2 apples, gives them both to the daughter. Well, she holds up each apple, and dad says, hey, can I have one? And upon hearing this, the daughter, she takes a bite out of each apple. And dad's surprised. And he's wondering what mistake he must have made raising a daughter because she's acting in such a greedy way. But maybe he's just thinking too much in his daughter. She's too young to really understand about sharing and about giving. And then all of a sudden, the daughter, she looks at her dad and she holds up one of the apples and she goes, Dad, take this one. It's much sweeter and juicier. Dad was speechless. Next time, he'd be more patient.